Welcome to InDesign Secrets, episode 319. I'm Anne-Marie Concepcion, and I'm here with my co-host, David Blattner.
And remember that InDesign Secrets is the essential resource for all things InDesign.
That's right, I-99. And in today's show...
Brought to you by Creative Pro Network.
Yeah.
That's the most important part of the whole podcast, right there.
Fine. The good folks at Creative Pro Network. After you say InDesign, everything just falls away because I'm not interested in anything else. All right, moving on. In today's show, as usual, we're going to start out with a bit of news. And we're going to take not a deep dive, but maybe a swim through the new features in 19.4. As we record this, that's the latest version. And I don't know what's happening with the InDesign team, but they've been throwing a whole bunch of new features at it left and right. So
features. Real features.
We're going to have to catch up with them for a bit. And even there's a beta release that I want to talk about. And then David did a great interview with Marcus Radich from PageProof. And finally, the obscure InDesign feature of the week is adjust dashes and gaps. And I found it. I know where it is.
It's a good one. That's a good one. Okay. A little bit of news, as Anne-Marie mentioned. If you haven't upgraded to 19.4 yet, time to do that. It's some good stuff. There are a few gotchas. We'll talk about those in just a little bit. But in general, it seems to be working really quite well. Online events of note, Creative Pro Week, of course, is coming up. But even before Creative Pro Week, we have a free event. There's a free Creative Pro webinar. It's a 1-hour webinar with Bart Vandevila. And what we've done is we've taken one of his sessions from Creative Pro Week a couple of years ago, all about how to use Photoshop, InDesign, and Illustrator together as a single thing.
He wrote a book
about it. He wrote a whole book about it. So he did the session and then wrote a book about it. So the session is really great. You don't want to miss it. It's a free webinar. We're going to play the whole session, and then Bart is going to be there to answer questions. So that's June 4th, Tuesday, June 4th. And you can sign up. We'll put the link in the show notes, but you can find it if you just go to creativepro.com. We'll put a link in the show notes. Sign up. And if you can't be there live, you can still sign up, and we'll just send you the link to the recording, and you can watch it over the next month or so.
He's such a good presenter, too. You know, I think what's cool about Bart is that, like a few other people that I know, he was a successful trainer, flying around and recording videos and such, and Adobe snapped him up about almost 10 years ago, I think. And now he's Adobe's head of solutions consulting and tech evangelism. He's based in Europe, but I think he still does training. I know he still does recording of videos, writing of books, and presenting at conferences. So,
and he'll be at Creative Pro Week. So Creative Pro Week will be July 8th through 12th in Washington, D.C., or we're also live streaming it. Hopefully you can be there in person. It's going to be an amazing, amazing event. And you can get $100 off any multi-day pass if you use the code CP Secrets. This is InDesign Secrets. The code is CP Secrets. So hope we see you there, either in DC or online. What else is new before we get
to talk about that? Creative Pro just released the 4th edition of their font collection for members.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a neatest
thing. Jeff Potter put it together. Jeff Potter pulled this whole thing together, and he built the PDF that goes with it. Yeah, what do you like about it?
Well, I honestly hadn't taken a close look because I thought it was kind of in previous ones, because I thought they were like, here's our 5 favorite fonts that work together well from Adobe fonts, which I've seen, other times. I'm sure it did a good job. But this time I'm like, I wonder what fonts you're talking about. Well, they're not Adobe fonts. They are fonts that are not in the Adobe font collection. But as far as I can tell, they are all free for commercial use. They're SIL licensed or Creative Cloud or Creative Commons licensed, and all of the licenses are there. But the whole thing comes not just with the PDF, but with the fonts themselves, along with the license. So you can go ahead and load them and start playing. And the layout is beautiful, showing how it's used. It's funny and witty. I think his wife wrote it or something, or helped design it. Beautiful PDF, really, and I really enjoyed it. It was great. And I can't wait to play with some of those fonts.
And this is the 4th volume so we have 4 different volumes of fonts you can download, and just like you said, they're free for you to use, and but I agree. The PDF that comes with it that Jeff built is so
Yes. Yeah, it
brilliant.
is. It's good.
So check it out. Also, version 3, volume 3 was also hysterically
I
funny.
gotta
So
check that out again. I have to
definitely check those
reopen
out.
it. Anyway, I just want to bring that up because it looks like this one was just released the
Thank you.
beginning of May, so people should know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is available to all members. There's a Creative
Mhm.
Pro member
Mhm.
benefit. So when you become a member of Creative Pro, which is pretty inexpensive, you can go to the website and you go to resources downloadables,
Right.
and you'll see all the different downloadables there
Mhm.
that members get. So there's InDesign templates and Photoshop templates and
Right.
scripts and all kinds of cool things that you can
Mhm.
download. And that the font collections are part
Yeah.
of that. That's our little value add thing that we
That's
do.
cool.
So good. We hope you sign up to become a Creative Pro
Right.
member at creativepro.com. Okay.
Uh,
We should talk about
okay.
19.4. Let's
All
talk
right.
about
Let's
that.
talk about 19.4. So, first of all, let's just we'll have a link in the show notes to Adobe's official list of what's new in 19.4. But I think some of these also they rolled them out with 19.3 and then they sort of fixed them in
Yeah.
19.4. But I think altogether, the main thing that I love is text to image, which I think is a lot of fun. That's a generative image. It's kind of like in Photoshop, and I'm sure in Illustrator too, that you type in something and voila, you get an image of it. You know, you could go to a stock photo, even free stock photo places, and search for keywords, but sometimes you can get a very, you want something unique, and this can do it for you. And it uses licensed imagery from its own stock collection. And so I think it's ethically okay to use, though you might want to write in there generative image. Anyway, text to image lets you look at it, different variations of what it comes up with. You could say that you want either something that looks like a photograph or something that looks like an illustration. I thought illustration would be a vector file, but no, they're all JPEGs, but they're high resolution and you can easily export them so that you can edit them in Photoshop if you wanted to, via a way that I learned from David and Mike as far as how to do that. And you can put a link to a couple posts that we wrote about that. But you are able to edit them. That's text to image. Another one.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
so this is
Yeah,
actually let me
sure.
just say about that. So it's basically Firefly. So if you've used Firefly in Photoshop or on the Firefly
Hmm.
website, it's Firefly. They've just taken all of Firefly or a big chunk of Firefly and smushed it into InDesign. And you get the little context bar along the bottom. Anytime you select a graphic frame now, and this is important, anytime you select a graphic frame in InDesign, you're going to get this little context
Yeah.
bar that pops up underneath it. And I would say on an order of how annoying that is, it's probably about a 9 out of 10.
But
It
it's
it
easy
is
to turn
really
off
really it
as an
is easy to turn
application
off,
default.
but I think that it's important to point
Yeah.
out that you're probably going to want to turn it off. But I'm going to encourage you not to turn it off. I'm going to encourage you to just try it a couple of times and see if you can get used to it. It does seem annoying that it shows up every time. There is one thing that I would do instead of turning it off. I would go to the little three dot, the kebab menu on the right side of that little context menu and choose pin context bar. And that way you can move it to where you want on your screen and then pin it to that
That's
point. So
interesting.
instead of it showing up everywhere on every every graphic frame, it'll show up on your screen. It'll pop up, but it won't be right in your way. So I find that a little bit more useful.
Well, hmm. I think a better
Says Emery.
solution than that
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
is to, at that control bar, choose Show Text to Image Panel, and
Okay.
then add the panel to your dock and save it as a custom workspace.
So okay,
It
I
adds
like that idea.
exactly it adds everything the context bar does.
Well, the context bar is interesting because the context bar, the context menu. When you right click on an object, you get a menu that shows
Yeah.
up, and you right click or a control click with one button mouse, you get that menu. It's all text. I think what Adobe's trying to do is move to something that is more obvious. A lot of people,
Okay,
surprisingly,
I
but a
hear
lot of
you. I
people
hear you.
don't right click on things. And so the context bar, I think down the road a little bit is going to develop. It's going to evolve into something that has more than just the generative AI stuff. And the reason I say that is there is actually one thing that they added inside that context bar, and that's import image.
That, yeah.
So you can select it, make a frame, a graphic frame, and then you can, instead of doing Command D or going to the file menu and choosing place, you can just click import image. It does the same thing. It imports an image from
Why
it just does a
place. It should just say place.
Well, I've wondered that. I think that too is part of Adobe's mentality of trying to make it more obvious what things do. Like a lot of people don't understand place anymore,
yes,
but they do understand the phrase import image. So they're trying to make it, especially for beginner users, they're trying to make it more obvious or more easy to use. That's my theory. But that said, it's at the cost of not being consistent. I personally would rather they be consistent everywhere.
Okay. Anyway, moving on. That's just a tiny little bit of what we want to talk about today. We'll probably have to have
Gen AI
thing all about this, but yeah,
we probably should. But I do need to say one more thing about Gen AI. Just because you can create it doesn't mean you should. And one of the things that you have to keep in mind is the copyright nature of Gen AI images is still up in the air.
That's true.
That if you create an image and put it in your company's annual report, that image is probably not copyrighted. It's just, I want to be really clear about that. There are legal ramifications. Catherine Goldman talked a lot about that at last year's Creative Pro Week, and she's going to be doing it. The Design and AI Summit. She's going to be talking again at Creative Pro Week in DC about the legal ramifications. So that's definitely going to be a session that people want to check out. There are a lot of legal issues around using
not violating somebody's copyright, but you yourself are not allowed to copyright it. And there might be regulations at your company that you cannot add any images, especially something as important as an annual report that might need to be filed with the SEC or something that you cannot
be careful. Just be careful about that. So you may
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, so we'll go into that. Maybe we should have Catherine on the show.
That would be great.
Talk about that. That'd be cool. Okay. Anyway, I just wanted to get that in there. Important.
All right, that is. That's text to image. That's just one. Another big one that they just added with 19.4 was InDesign Cloud docs. And I was ranting about this because Photoshop and Illustrator have had them for over a year at least. The ability to save your document into a cloud space like you can with PDFs in Acrobat DC. Why you'd want to do it, that I'm not so sure, honestly. It does not open up the gates of heaven or anything. You can choose Save to Cloud, and it doesn't mean that lots of people can edit it. It means that you can invite somebody to edit it, and as long as you don't have it open, they can edit it. Not in the browser, but in InDesign. And then they save their changes, and those changes get saved to the cloud. So that when you open it, you'll see their changes.
Well, I think that is, it's not there yet.
Okay.
This is step one of a multi-step journey. I think that it's a good step, and I'm so glad that they finally rolled it out around the world. The fact that you can save your InDesign documents in the cloud, INDDC files. But I'm not convinced. I'm not doing a lot of it myself other than just testing it. But I do like this idea that if you are working with somebody else, you and I could work together on a file. We just can't do it at the same time yet. It's not like Google Docs.
We tried it when it first came out, and it was very interesting going back and forth.
Yeah. But I think it's kind of cool that you could start a document and you could send it to me and I could go, oh, okay, I'm going to make some changes and save it and then tag you and it sends back to you. What is the difference
between just attaching it to an email and sending it to you or sticking it in a shared Dropbox folder? I mean, it's the same kind of thing.
It's a little less friction. With a Dropbox thing, we have to share a folder. We have to use Dropbox. This is all built into the Adobe ecosystem. I think it's getting there. I think it's. I'd love to hear if anyone's listening here who has used this in a real world situation. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Go ahead and leave a note in the show notes about it. But I do feel like this is an important new step for Adobe. and the fact that more and more of your tech, more and more of your documents are going to be in the cloud,
Yes.
Photoshop, Illustrator, and now InDesign. And in the future, we'll be placing those Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign documents into other Photoshop, into other
You can do
InDesign
that
documents,
now
right?
with 19.4. You can play.
Did they add that?
Yes. When you choose, as long as your document is in the cloud, as you're looking at it, the title bar shows a little cloud icon and the extension is INDDC. Then when you go to
Yes.
place, then there is a button there that says Open
Yep.
Cloud Document. And there,
Right.
any Photoshop or InDesign files appear for you to be able to select and place. I have not yet seen Illustrator files for some reason. The Illustrator cloud
Oh,
documents aren't coming through. Um,
wow. That's
yeah,
You know what? This was not in when they first released 19.4, and I think this might have been an update, or maybe I just missed
possibly.
it.
I don't
That's
know.
possible.
I don't know.
But I'm trying it right now. It works. I just
Yes,
placed another, and remember, you can place an InDesign document into an InDesign
right,
document, right? So I just placed an InDesign cloud document into an InDesign local document,
right.
and it's linked to the cloud. So, all right, well, that's going to be wacky. We're gonna
It's
have to we'll have
wacky.
some
When you
fun playing with
download
that.
it, then it shows it's a cloud Photoshop file, and it shows it in links that it's a cloud Photoshop file. And
Right.
then I was trying to break it. I would save the InDesign file as a local document, and I think the Photoshop cloud document was still in there. Anyway, kind of crazy. Definitely
Well,
needs more testing.
there is, and there is a big gotcha
Okay.
here in that cloud documents cannot be packaged yet.
Okay. I'm
So
sure
I
you're right.
think that's a big, so that's a problem. So for a lot of workflows, again, this is a first step in a
Yeah.
cloud future, a cloudy future, but the cloudy is
At
foggy. I
least
don't know. There's
InDesign's
probably some.
now playing in the game. I appreciate that. All right.
Yes, thank
What's
goodness
another
we're in the game.
19.4 feature?
They added, this is something we've been asking for like 20 years now or 15
Hmm.
years, password protection of publish online
That's right.
documents. Finally, you can add a password to your publish online, so you can we all know that it's easy to make a publish online document from InDesign. You go to the file
Hmm.
menu, you choose publish online, give it a name, you upload it, and boom, you've got a URL. It's your document is in an interactive version on the
Right.
web. Super easy. And but in the past, the only protection you've had is that it's virtually impossible to guess somebody's URL.
Yes.
Now you can add a password.
Hmm.
They did a password protection, and they also added the ability to add Google
Hmm.
Analytics and a consent banner. So those things make it much more compelling for companies to get into using Publish
Yep.
Online. So I'm
That's true.
super happy that they finally added that.
And
Yeah.
they've added EPUB accessibility enhancements. So if you are creating
Yep.
EPUBs, in my latest course for Linda, I'm sorry, Linda, oh my gosh, LinkedIn Learning, I have a
Yes.
chapter on creating accessible EPUBs in my latest InDesign EPUB course. And now I have to
Great.
update it with this feature. Like there's a bunch of things like um, uh, having to do with creating selecting artwork and automatically having InDesign say you don't have to create alt text for it because it's just decorative. It does that. It's also updated
Oh,
a lot
good.
of the other inner settings, and it has included
Great.
page list, which I know a lot of users like because the EPUB then can be matched with the printed version of the document. And so if you're in a class, so you're a teacher, some people have the ebook version, some people have the printed version. You can say on page 95, and people go to page 95, and people reading the ebook can say, "Where's page 95?" Oh, it's here.
Wow, I didn't know that was in
Yep,
there. That's
they
very cool.
embedded that.
Laura Brady wrote a great article about a lot of this.
Yes.
We'll put a link in the show notes to it here on Creative
Yeah.
Pro. So
Yeah,
very, very cool.
there's an external script for Pageless, and I think Laura has written about it or done a video about it. But now it's part of InDesign, and you know why it's there? Because of
Nice.
Laura. I am positive she's been on their case
Yay.
about improving
She
EPUB
has.
exports and EPUB accessibility, and it's definitely been to great effect. So thank you, Laura.
Thank you so much, Laura, for keeping the flame going there and pushing stuff
Yeah.
through. That's great. Um, and thank you to the InDesign team
Yes.
for putting these new features
Yay.
in. It is really delightful to have features to talk about in InDesign
Yes.
again.
Absolutely.
Got to tell you, That's a good thing. Feels good. The last feature that I wanted to mention, I think we may have
We
mentioned it
did.
in the
We
last one
did.
because it was part of
Right.
19.3, but just to make sure everyone is aware, you can export and then import your user
Hmm.
settings, meaning your preferences, your workspaces, and menu commands
Right.
and all of that stuff in a single file, and then you can import it again later. It's a nice way to get a backup.
Yeah.
For a long time we've wanted a way of getting a backup. You can also share it with other people on your
Hmm.
team. If you set up your workspace just the way you want, and then and preferences and everything, and you can send this file to other people, and they can make sure theirs is
That's true.
just like
And if you're
yours.
looking for it,
So
it's under the File menu, way toward the bottom, called, I think, User Settings with the fly out, import and
yeah,
export.
yeah. I'm It's a work in progress too. There's a few gotchas there. One of the main things is if you try and import something from a previous version of InDesign, like this was in 19.3, so I exported from 19.3 and then I tried to import it to
Yeah.
19.4. It gave me a really scary looking warning, like I don't know if this is going to
Oh
work,
man.
but it worked fine.
Okay.
So it seems
That's good.
safe. It seems safe.
It didn't explode, smoke come
Okay.
out of the back of the computer.
It
Nothing like that.
it
Okay.
didn't. It didn't. Okay, really quickly, you have also been
The
looking at
beta.
19.4 public
That's right.
beta.
So
Adobe has
it's a
been, yeah.
public
So
beta.
tell us about
Anybody
that.
can download it. You just go to your Creative Cloud application running on the desktop on your computer, and in the app section, scroll down, and you'll see beta apps. And there you'll see InDesign parentheses beta with a generic looking icon, and you can download it and you can keep it up to date. So it runs side by side with Adobe InDesign, the regular one. And the big new feature is that it can open PDFs and convert them to editable InDesign files. Yay,
Woohoo!
finally, after so many other apps can do that. But it's not the equivalent of what some of the paid converters can do. And I
Yeah,
think
not
we'll include
close.
a couple links to those articles from I think a couple people have reviewed. What's the main one?
Yeah, so we have like PDF to ID from
Right,
Microsoft has
Microsoft's.
been
Yeah,
the classic. They've been in this business for many years. They really understand how to convert PDFs to InDesign documents to editable documents. Marksware, of course, has one as well. There's a new one from Leg Up Tools
right.
that Keith Gilbert is working on a review on
Yep.
now. So there are tools out there that let you do this, but it's interesting that Adobe is getting into the biz
Yeah,
themselves
it might not
finally.
be fun for those
Um,
people who are selling plugins to do this, but
well,
right now they don't have
I tell
anything
you,
to worry about.
they
No.
really don't because it's pretty cruddy. I mean, the quality is
Well,
pretty cruddy,
the cool thing is just
and
that you can do it. You can choose open a file, and you can choose a PDF. That's a
yes, it's cool that you can do it. But if what you're doing ends up with crap, then is that really that much fun?
Well,
I don't
you
know.
get all the images are there, and it links to the images,
Okay,
and it puts the
okay,
images in a folder,
okay,
and
okay.
then or does it embed? I can't remember. But anyway, the images are there, and the text is there, and it's live. But the big pain of it is that every paragraph is in a separate text frame, and they're not
Uh,
threaded at all.
yeah,
So
that's
that is
yeah,
a
that's a big
pain.
one.
Maybe they'll
Uh,
fix it, but they have figured out, like, if there's a bulleted list in the text, it comes through with automatic bullets, and that is in a single text frame. All those
right.
paragraphs.
Some of the formatting is working properly, and some isn't. It's very limited right now. Right
Right.
now, here we are. Right, it's in public beta right now.
Right.
So you don't expect too much. It only works right now with PDFs that were created with
Hmm.
InDesign. So you have to create your PDF with InDesign, and then it basically pulls it back and turns it into InDesign documents. So most PDFs it doesn't work on at all yet.
I didn't know that.
I think
I
it's
didn't test that.
also
Interesting.
English only right
Could
now.
be.
Last I checked, so it's only doing English PDFs as well. That's kind of a limitation as well. So it's super limited. Yet I do want to encourage people to try
Yes,
it, and the reason I want people to try it is because Adobe needs
that's right.
feedback. They need to understand what's working and what's not working.
It'll say leave
Please
feedback.
give
It
them.
jumps you to a form that I'm sure Adobe people are sitting right there waiting for them to come in to read it. But
They
I've
are.
already sent in a bunch of feedback. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
They need that feedback. If this feature is ever going to be made great, they need that feedback, partly because this feature is largely based on AI technology and it needs to be trained.
Yes.
So that's our job. So you can take that on if you want, but that's what they're hoping is going to happen.
That's right.
Okay. We gotta jump forward. I think that's it.
Yes, that's
right?
it. That's the main thing. Okay.
Good
Let's
stuff.
go on
Good
to
stuff. Oh,
yes. What?
No, that's it. Yeah, please.
I want to hear what you and Marcus talked about.
Yeah, we had a great conversation. Had to do it at a time when Anne-Marie couldn't be there, sadly. But so sorry, Anne-Marie. But let's switch over and see what Marcus had to say. Welcome, Marcus Radich, to the studio, the InDesign Secrets fabulous studio here. It is a pleasure to see you again.
Yes, great to see you too. Thank you for inviting me along.
Absolutely. Marcus is actually, I don't know your title. You're chief something officer of PageProof.
Yes, I'm one of the co-founders and the chief technology officer. So CTO.
CTO. Okay, excellent. I should know that, but I don't know, these C-level things, they all kind of blend together for me. But as co-founder of PageProof, what I love is that you came from a design perspective, a design background, and you said, there's this hole in our system. We have this, we've been working for 30 plus years in a world where we're working on a design and we're working with a team and we need to get comments, review, and approval. And nobody's done it right. And I love that you identified this friction in the market, this sense, this hole, this need. And you said, oh, we could do that. And you've been working on this for over a decade. How long have you been working on PageProof?
So PageProof, yes. So the story goes back a long way. But look, I came from a 1990s pre-press retouching background, and I was the InDesign chapter rep for New Zealand for a long time. That was a decade as well. And so I have a long history in publishing, pre-press, all of that sort of thing. Moved into digital publishing, and then actually got into a consulting company where we were going out and taking our expertise and saying to people, hey, here's this thing called a Mac. You can put down the the scalpels and things with the on the light bench there. Come over to this digital thing. It's cool. And we spent a lot of time introducing people to that sort of workflow. Now, fast forward to sort of, I think it was about 2000, we had a company say to us, hey, all you smart consultants, how come my people are still getting in a car, driving down the road, and showing a proof to somebody who draws all over it with a pen? And we said, yeah. Why are we still doing that?
Why?
Yeah. So we came up with the very first incarnation of PageProof. It was a very basic annotation tool back in early 2000s, and that was successful for a while. And then into 2010s, we said, hey, we should take this to the world and allow people to just sign up with a credit card and use this thing to proof their work. And so that's what we did in 2013, 2014. Okay. And we've been working on it ever since, and we've had some great successes in helping people review and approve their work. So that's the very short, condensed sort of history.
Well, and there have been other solutions along the way. Adobe, of note, has been giving us options for a very long time with PDF, comment and review, and of course now in InDesign there's the share for review. But I'm not even going to ask you. I'm just going to say to everyone who's listening here, they're clunky. They're just clunky, and I just think what you've done is come up with something that's just smoother. It's all about reducing friction. And when you're working, the comment and review in a PDF is fine, typically if you're dealing with one other person. But as soon as you're dealing with 2, 3, 10, 20, 50 other people, it just kind of goes nuts. And so I think that I place PageProof in this world of, as soon as you've got a team, you need PageProof. And would you agree with that? Does that seem like the right category?
That's absolutely right. And so we look at it and we say, okay, so you have to get feedback from a bunch of people. And usually if you're working on something like, digital catalog, or you're working on even print work or video, you can't just send it to one person and say, what do you think? This is fine. Send it out to 1 million or 2 or 10 million people, and it'll be okay. This in this world, we need to make sure the content is correct. We need to make sure the messaging is right. We need to make sure that we haven't got competitor logos in the background of the video that we're filming. All these things need to have eyes on them, and that's where we really shine. And I think the big thing that we've done recently is integrated into project management tools. We've deeply integrated into InDesign. I mean, that's one of our flagships is, hey, look at the InDesign plugin. We do a better job of integrating into InDesign than Adobe does.
Yeah, and, absolutely.
It gets better every single version that we do. So it's a really great ride, and we listen to customers. I actually, we get on airplanes, fly over the world. I sit with customers and say, show me what you're doing. Tell me what you're doing. And that's something that I guess at scale, someone like Adobe doesn't always do.
Well, so speaking of jumping on an airplane and flying around the world, you were about to do that because you're coming to Creative Pro Week in Washington, D.C. And you've been at Creative Pro Week a number of times. And whenever I come around the corner, I'll be at the conference, I come around the corner, and you're doing just that. Talking to the customers, having these one-on-ones, saying, what do you need? How can we help? And I love that. And it seems like every time you have one of those, you come to one of those events, soon after there's a bunch of cool new features that make PageProof even better. I love that that aspect that you're constantly improving.
Yeah, and we learned that very early on. In fact, we look at things and we say, hey, why would a customer care about this thing that we're thinking about? Let's go ask. And it's all about customer feedback. And we like to bring things to surprise customers. That's the R&D piece, and that's great. But there's also things where the voice of the customer is really important. Creative Pro Week, we hear it directly from people, which is really great. And we get an awesome cross-section of people from different places, and there's people from government organizations, people from corporate, people from design firms. You've got an entire smattering of people right there to talk to, so it is invaluable for us.
And because PageProof is not just about InDesign, I mean we're all InDesign users here on the podcast, but because PageProof works with Illustrator, Photoshop, PowerPoint, and beyond, right? Email, websites, video, Figma, all of those tools, you've got people who come to Creative Pro Week who need to work in an ecosystem that we're using all those tools. None of us are working in a vacuum with just one app. And I think that is another reason why people are so drawn to it. They're saying, oh, wait, I've got one solution that can work across this whole ecosystem. It's great.
Yeah, and it's quite an important point, actually, because inside a PageProof, you can create, here's my campaign. And inside my campaign, I have 2 television commercials, there's a YouTube video,
right.
There's some design that needs to go into a press ad, there's a few newspaper, and you end up with it like, oh, hey, even the Figma prototype for the app that we're going to build for this campaign, that's in there as well. So you've got people that are looking at brand and looking at products going into one place and seeing all of the creative work on one canvas and being able to sign it all off in one place. And that's a huge advantage. A lot of other solutions are very focused on one particular media type. And that's great. But when you've got people that are short on time, we're trying to increase efficiency right now. That is a big thing in business right now, is how do we get more efficient? Getting more efficient is looking at it one place, making sure that the branding is all consistent, boom, sign it off, done. So I think it's pretty compelling.
And because it's a browser-based solution, another way that it's efficient is I can be anywhere and I can be commenting. I can be in my browser. I could be using my phone. I could be on a guest on someone else's machine. That kind of flexibility is also adds to the efficiency.
It absolutely does, and we see a lot of people signing work off on mobiles. That is a huge amount of work, and we even look forward. So last time we were in New York, we went to the Apple Store and purchased the Vision Pro, and we thought, so we brought back to the R&D team here in the office, and we said, does PageProof run on a Vision Pro? And it does. It absolutely does. So you can actually sit there and you can do proofing on in 3D space, which is kind of fun.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
I
kind of fun.
like that idea. Or I hate that idea. I'm not sure whether I like that idea.
Yeah, it's but the great thing is that what we like to do is we're looking at the now and we're looking to the future, and
Yeah. Yeah.
who knows if these bets pay off, but the point is, can we be there? Because as we know, media is changing all the time. Like I was talking to someone the other day and we were talking about how we work in InDesign, we work with files, we know how files work, and then we get to something like Figma and it doesn't have a file. It's my design just sits in space.
Right.
And if I want to download a Figma file, there isn't one. So things change, and it's like going into these sort of realms where we're working with things like Vision Pro. It's a bit of a fantasy, but we've got to look at it.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense, and I love that you're looking at that. Absolutely. What do you think is what are the right steps that a new user should take if somebody's interested in PageProof and they're using InDesign and they just want to try it out? What should they do?
So go to pageproof.com, and up the top of the screen, you'll see there is a join a webinar. So what we're doing is every week on Wednesday, exactly the same time every week, there's a public webinar. People can join the webinar. You can watch it's a half-hour demo, and it just goes through. There's a whole bunch of people on there at the same time, and the idea is that you can just sit there, watch the demo, get a feel for how it all works. We go into InDesign, we pop out, we do proof. All of that happens, and that's every week. So you can get a good look at it and understand how it works just from a short investment in time.
Great. All right. We will put a link in our show notes to PageProof to make sure everyone can find it. But if you could just type pageproof.com and you'll get there pretty easy. Listen, Marcus, I really appreciate you taking the time to get us up to speed a little bit with PageProof and what you're doing. I've just been impressed. I'm impressed by how, once again, you're just helping people make things more efficient. And that is honestly a great service for this industry, which, because you're right, we are having to get more efficient more all the time. We're being more and more stuff is being thrown at us, and we just can't deal with having 50 people send us 50 emails with 50 PDFs and trying to make sense of it. It just doesn't work anymore. So PageProof is the way to go. It's great. All right. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, David.
All right. That was pretty cool.
I've
been using PageProof for a while. That's pretty neat. Though I haven't, not in the past year or so, but when they first came out, that's very cool.
They have been really, really improving. Yeah. It's worth checking out again, seriously, because they keep adding new features. So I'm loving that. Loving it.
Let's go to the obscure InDesign feature of the week. You came up with this one. It is adjust dashes and gaps. And I had to search for it, but I did find it pretty quickly because I thought I knew where it was.
It's not that obscure, honestly. A lot of people have seen this. We have actually a bunch of articles about this, or that touch on a little bit at Creative Pro over the years. It's inside. Well, do you want to say where did you find it?
I dragged out a stroke with the stroke tool. What is that tool called? The line tool? Yeah, the line tool.
Line tool.
And
okay, how do you do it?
I looked in the stroke panel and under type, and I tried dashed, and I was like, oh, is he talking about dash gap, where you put in the pixels? And then I saw, above there is corners. What to do with the corners so it's not going to be that exciting for a single line, but when you create, corners like a triangle or a square, like a regular frame, and you're using dashes like around a coupon, what do you want to happen with the dashes at the corners? Do you want them to look wonky? Do you want them to be always with a solid on each side? That kind of thing, right?
Right.
Okay. So I'm gonna.
So that's
yes.
That's fascinating because what you just described was not what I was intending to talk about.
Really?
I actually forgot that this feature was inside the stroke panel.
Where did you think it was?
Well, this is great. I love it. Thank you so much. So that's actually, a lot of people don't realize that when you choose in the stroke panel, when you choose a dashed stroke, as Anne-Marie was just saying, you get this little thing at the bottom that shows up that you can say how long the dashes are going to be, right? Just what you're talking about. And there is the corners pop-up menu. And you're right. It says adjust dashes and gaps inside that pop-up menu.
If you leave it at none, and I think the default is to adjust them. I'm not sure. But if you leave them at none, then some corners have a little bit of a dash and other ones have a full gap. So without your non-printing frame visible, it looks kind of wonky. It doesn't look like there's a corner there. So normally you want to adjust dashes and gaps so that every corner appears fine. So what it's doing is it's adjusting the amount of space, kind of like tracking. It's tracking it out or in a little bit. And then as you resize your cornered frame, it automatically adjusts the dashes and gaps.
Right. You almost always want to have this turned on to adjust dashes and gaps, or else, like you said, the corners are going to look wonky. I think that is the technical term for your corners. Now, what I was describing when I first wrote this to you, Anne-Marie, was not there. So I'm so surprised to see it there. I love it. What I was talking about is creating custom stroke styles. When you go to the stroke styles inside the stroke panel menu, you can choose stroke styles, and then you can make your own custom stroke styles, at least to a degree. And one of the things you can do is you can make a new dash. And when you make a new dash style, there too, there's a pop-up menu called Corners that lets you adjust the dashes and gaps. Menu. Just what we're talking about. Or it's the same menu. So you can adjust just the dashes, adjust the gaps, just the gaps. That's hard to say. Or adjust both the dashes and the gaps. And it does the same thing, exactly what you're saying, but here it's baked into the stroke style.
It is interesting that it's so fine-tuned that way, because why would you ever want to adjust the dashes and not the gaps? Maybe your gaps are so important, they all have to be 6 points, but the dashes can go crazy between 10 points and 15 points. Is that why? Kind of weird.
Well, it is weird, but it turns out that there are some really cool things you can do with that. If you adjust just the gaps, for example, this is the way that you make. We're going to put a link to it because it's much easier to see than to talk about. But there are times when what you want are just corners, right? And no matter how big you don't want dashes, you just want corners.
All right,
and so there's a trick, right? You make really huge adjustable gaps, but you always want the corners to be the same size. So that's a little hack.
That's kind of neat. Is that?
There are other times that it's really important that the dashes always be a certain amount. So like if you're doing forms where you have a certain dash size and they have to always be the same, and it's okay for the gaps to change. Anyway, so there's tricks that you can do there.
Got it.
But honestly, 98% of the dashed lines that you want, you are going to be using adjust both dashes and lines, gaps, because you want those corners to be not wonky. Yeah.
Interesting. All right, that's a great obscure feature. Thank you. I completely forgot about it.
And thank you for bringing up this other location, because I had completely forgotten about that.
Okay.
So that's funny. That's
all
great.
Right. Let's see. Hang on a minute. That is it for today's episode, number 319. Be sure to check out our show notes at creativepro.com. Go to resources and select podcasts, where we have links to all the places that we mentioned and the articles and stuff like that. We'd love to hear what you thought of the show. Leave a comment in the show notes. Start a topic on the InDesign Secrets forums on LinkedIn and Facebook. And until we meet again, this is Anne-Marie and
David Blattner for InDesign Secrets.